Isn't it kind of weird how whenever there's something wrong with the game, it's always seemingly the player's fault? It's never the developers, it's never the quality assurance people, it's never the testers, it's never the research people, it's always and exclusively the player's fault, and that has been a consistent trend throughout this era that is called Gamergate 2. How every single time we get a bad game, somehow it is our fault for not liking the sludge we are handed. And I'm not really sure where this whole idea is coming from, but it's so utterly pervasive and it's quite annoying, and I have no idea why it keeps being spread around, other than the fact that it allows for them to avoid controversy and blame. We've heard it with Concord, we've heard it with Assassin's Creed Shadows, we've heard it time in and time out again, and this time we've heard it once again, this time coming from one of the creators of the Fallout franchise, and a phenomenal franchise, frankly, one that I'm quite happy with, although, let's be entirely honest, New Vegas is in fact overrated. But this creator, Tim Cain, went out on his own personal YouTube channel and released a video, do developers really know what gamers want? Because the assumption is they should. I mean, they've been giving us good content for decades. Why is it all of a sudden we're getting sludge? He offers some insight, but it mostly comes off as continued obfuscation. He doesn't really talk about the negative influences, and he continues to only blame the players. Somehow it's our fault because we don't communicate well enough, but we communicate very loudly with one very simple thing. Our wallets. What we spend money on is what we want. What we don't spend money is what we don't. What we spend full price on is what we want more. And what we only buy when it's $5 on Steam Winter Sale is what we want significantly less. It's not that hard to look at the research market. And it's not that hard to bring in some test gamers. But you've actually got to look for gamers. And there's another thing he completely fails to address that I'll cover later. And that is the topic of audience. So grabbing this over from Phantom Pulse, written by John of Trent, Fallout creator claims video game developers have no idea what gamers want, then blames gamers for providing bad feedback. Tim Cain, one of the creators of Fallout, recently declared that video game developers and studios have no clue what gamers want, but then proceeds to blame gamers for providing bad feedback. In a recent upload to his YouTube channel, Cain stated, "I wanted to give you the raw, unfiltered response. Do devs know what gamers want? And here it is. No, we don't know what you want. We have no idea. Seriously, what you want." And well, ultimately, game developers should be gamers, so whatever you want is what you should be putting in a game, and if you know whether or not your position is popular based on conversations you have with other people, then you should know what kind of audience you are looking forward to. To me, this really only seems like a problem if you aren't a gamer and you're making games. Like most of the activist game developers are, where they really hate games as a whole and just use it as a vehicle. His rationale for this is, here's the long answer, and it's all kind of can be summed up as because you don't know either. You know what? I agree with that, actually. You never know what you're going to want until you get it. You don't know what movies are going to be good. Nobody knew Iron Man was going to be one of the greatest movies ever made, but we got it anyway and we were happy to get it. No one probably expected Witcher 3 to be one of the most tentpole games of society. No one really expected Marvel Rivals to be the renaissance of hero shooters in today's day and age. And it's my issue whenever the criticism of who wants this or who asked for it comes up. Nobody asked for Iron Man 1 to be as good as it was. Nobody asked for that movie. Nobody asked for Robert Downey Jr. We got it anyway, and we love it. It's not a matter of who asked for it. It's how you prove that what you made is worth buying. He then continues, first off, many of you only tell developers what you hate. Great. You said what it is you don't want, but what is it you want? When you keep saying, I hate this in games, I hate this feature, I hate these kind of characters and all that, great. What kind of characters do you want? If you hate sarcastic characters, well, there's an entire realm of non-sarcastic characters. But what is it you want? Do you want funny characters? Do you want serious characters? Do you want characters with a lot of background? Do you want characters with very little that you don't want to spend a wall of time in a wall of text dialogue? What do you want? That's why you have to tell us what you want and not what you don't want. While I agree with the sentiment, the way he's going about explaining this is all wrong. It's the nature of the protagonist isn't the problem. Now, sure, people may or may not buy games depending on what they have for the protagonist, but people want different kind of games. There is no one gamer. Gamers are a large group, just a whole bunch of people who play digital things on their computers. That's all that we are. And so you don't need to monolithize characters. We don't want one kind of character. In fact, I'll tell you what we do want, Tim. We want all of these protagonists in different games. We want the characters to make sense in the games. It's not so much as what we want missing from the traits of the characters. We want these traits just in different characters in different games. Furthermore, it's the same thing as you said. We don't really know what it is we want, and as a developer and the creative, it is realistically your job to find out what we want. When we tell you what we hate, that's really saying, hey, just avoid putting this in there and go in a different direction. I feel like telling you what we hate is pretty much just as good of advice as what we love, because if you just keep giving us what we love, we're going to get bored of it. And then he follows up by saying that even if gamers do explain what they want, it's vague. Even when you say what you want, you're often extraordinarily vague. You will say, I want a better game. I want better AI. I want better UI. Yeah, I'll just slide the better slide from okay to great on all of those. But one of the problems with this is a lot of the things that people complain about is to be fair, we're all plebs. Just because we play games doesn't mean we know how games work or the intricacies around it. We don't know how you can make it better. We just know that we don't like the current state of it. And there are a lot of things that are much more substantial that people criticize, such as Dragon Age Veilguard having terrible character design and generally the enemies being too much of a bullet sponge. I personally hated Doom Eternal because the way that the combat worked to me is it felt more like just throwing spaghetti at a wall until one of them killed you instead of actually doing well-designed levels that had intricately placed systems that actually made a challenge. Instead, it was just enemy after enemy, and it wasn't nearly as fun. And there you go. That's something that I disliked that I'm not being vague about. Now for something I liked, I loved Doom 2016, where each level felt like it was intentionally designed instead of just throwing enemies at you until one of them killed you or you managed to kill all of them and the computer just got bored of throwing them at you. He continues, if you don't say what you're talking about, it can be really vague. For example, what does better for you mean in a game? Or when you say, how is that bad AI? What are you talking about? Are they just running straight at you, not shooting? What do you mean? Well, I just said what is the problem with, say, Doom Eternal. There's just too many of them. If you actually listen to what we have to say, we will tell you what's wrong. Or if you just ask, what is it you don't like? I mean, yes, I can do a 5-minute review and not substantiate any claims, or I can actually take my time and explain what's going on. For instance, in a game that I'm recently playing, Dreamscaper, there are things I like about it and there are things that I hate. It is honestly a phenomenal roguelike game. It really feels like Hades, but with a different art style and different gameplay style. One that's set in a dreamscape, and it's really interesting. But some of the enemy designs, some enemies have too much HP, some weapons have too slow of an attack animation, and do not compensate with proper damage. Some of the environments are kind of stilted. The on-fire ground is unfair and does too much damage, especially when considering the fact that you're constantly getting different kinds of dashes. As well as the fact that the overworld when you're awake is completely cringe, given the fact that the dialogue is all, invest in yourself. Establish a healthy mindset. There's some actual substantive criticism, but if I want to do a 5-minute quick review, then I'm not going to bother including that because why would I? I'm trying to get my thoughts out on paper as fast as possible. But that's not what I'm doing here, and that's not what you're talking about. What you're talking about is an actual review of a game, one that is actually explicitly telling you what you like and dislike, and that's not what you're looking at clearly. When you say you don't like a UI, what is the friction point in that UI that you're encountering? What is it that's bothering you? If you just say, that UI is dumb, it's not helping, and trust me, it's not just gamers who do this. I've worked with people who've literally said that out of their mouth. They're like, that looks dumb. Great, I'll get right on that, he continued. Now personally, I've seen a lot of complaints about UI, and I've levied my own complaints, but I've never seen just the words, it's a bad UI. I usually hear substantiation, things that I point out. For instance, in lots of games, the map's too big, the HUD's too big, you get a giant box on your face, or just the control schemes make no sense. A good example is Iron Man's UI in Marvel Avengers. For some reason, on the Xbox control, this is fly upwards, this is fly down. It makes no sense when they gave, I believe, B its own attack, when realistically B should be fly down and A should be fly up. So I remapped it, and when I refer to what is wrong with Iron Man, I make it very clear what my problem is. You just aren't listening, or you're not asking for explanations, because I rarely ever see people not substantiate UI issues. And as for developers, the criticism of that looks dumb isn't a whole review. That is a starting point. You say that looks dumb, then you should be asking, well, what's dumb about it so I know what to fix? This sounds like you're only engaging in the first half of a conversation and not bothering to finish it. Now at least he gets one thing right, where down here he notes that gamers are not monolithic and have different preferences. He points to comments on his previous videos about people disagreeing with fast travel, different difficulty options, or encumbrance mechanics. He notes because of all these different preferences, there's no possible way to make games that will make all of you happy. Cain then added, what's interesting to me, and this channel has made me really acknowledge it, you don't even agree on the fact that all of you are disagreeing. But that's the thing, gamers are not monolithic, and there are games that can do a million different things. You can have a fast travel system like Skyrim's, where it takes in-time game, or you can have a fast travel system that's instantaneous, or you can completely scrap the fast travel system for something else. For instance, another example from Skyrim is the carriage system, which, while technically is the fast travel system, works a bit differently given the way it functions, and is able to be used during, say, survival mode, where fast travel is disabled. Cain then finishes off his video talking about, I get that the individual want what you, the individual, want, but you have to realize that you, the individual, are not very good at giving developers feedback, and that you, the individual, are not everybody's the game's being made for. Many of you aren't even in the majority, and I hear you. I don't think I'm in the majority. I like a lot of niche games. I've made a lot of niche games. And so that's kind of what I'm saying here, is game development is hard on its own technically, but the lack of consensus among game players about what they want takes that difficulty to a whole new level. It's that much harder to make a game that you want to be popular, that you want to have a lot of sales, because most of you don't know what you want. Those of you that do know what you want are very vague at expressing it, and many of you don't realize that what you want isn't what a lot of other people want, he said. And that's entirely fair. I will be honest, a lot of what he just said there is fair, but here's the problem. He's the developer. And I agree, there are a lot of niche games, a lot of games that not everybody's going to like. Not everybody has to like every game. I play a lot of games that I don't think other people are going to enjoy, and a lot of people play games I won't enjoy. For instance, about Tarot, or whatever it's called, I have no interest in that. It's a card game. I don't care about card games. But I have a friend who I think's got like almost 500 hours in the game. I'm concerned for his health. But he's more than welcome to spend the time. If you have an idea for a game that you think will work, usually, so long as the game is well implemented, then gamers will consume that product. It's not so much a matter of what specific mechanics gamers want. And that's not the issue either. And you know, as I hope you know, Tim Cain, that the problem isn't a mechanical issue. Like, yes, people had an issue with the mechanics of Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, because it was a lot of pointless numbers flashing the screen that caused a lot of clutter. It was too bright, it was too cluttered, and it was too clunky, and it was not very pleasing to look at. The enemies were bullet sponges who just wouldn't die, and you'd have to spend far too long killing enemies for what it was worth, and they offered very little counter threat because your character was too hard to hit because you were always moving around, and the movement felt kind of pointless and homeless. To draw something from EFAP, I guess you could say the game didn't feel very tactile. But the mechanics were not the issue of Suicide Squad, and the mechanics are not the issue of most of these modern games. The problem is that you are taking away what we want from the story and from the meta parts of the game. Let's take a look at Alan Wake 2, a game that I bought. I pre-ordered the most expensive version because I love Alan Wake 2, and then I saw, I believe it was Heel vs. Babyface's review, at least I saw the thesis of it, and I said, well shit, Remedy Studio is my favorite studio, I don't want that tarnish, and I've never touched the game, and as more information came out, I'm glad I didn't. Now, I haven't heard a single person complain about the gameplay of the game. It's Alan Wake gameplay, basically. But a lot of other things, story beats that are completely nonsensical plot holes, things that completely violate the continuity of the world, and worst of all, the race swap of Saga Anderson. Now, for a game that supposedly had pretty good gameplay, there has to be a reason why Alan Wake 2 has yet to break even. And that's really two problems. First of all, it costs too much. And second of all, you failed to give the gamers what they want. In this case, it's very clear. They wanted a story that was a continuation of Alan Wake 1 that was truthful and honored the characters who came before. The fact of the matter is the gamers didn't give that to us, the developers didn't give that to us, and that's where that problem came in. There's also another issue of, as I mentioned, the audience that's completely being ignored by anything Cain says. I will give him credit for saying that gamers are not a monolith, and we are not. There is no one gamer. In fact, the label of gamer is kind of deceptive because it implies a community. We are not a community. We are just people who play games. But the thing is, there are different audiences for different kinds of games. The people who are going on and playing Fallout generally are not the people playing Boltero, and are generally not the people playing Sims. And of course, are most importantly not generally the kind of people playing Candy Crush. These giant game studios have completely lost the plot on who their target audience is. They look at gamers, but they don't know what a gamer is. They don't know who it is. They truly believe the myth that, say, 50% of gamers are women, so they've put far too much effort appealing to women in their games, when instead they should just try to appeal to the general market, because there are a lot of games that appeal to everybody, or appeal to everyone just by trying to appeal to men. But you can't aim to appeal to everyone, you just must attempt to make a game that appeals to someone. And most importantly, you really do need to stop trying to appeal to niche markets with mainstream bucks. And to a point, there's also the fact that, as you said, gamers are vague and we don't really know what we want. So all we're really waiting for is for someone to give us what we want, to be handed to us. Like I mentioned, that Dreamscaper game, if I had seen the overworld thing before I bought the game, it was $6. I didn't mind it. I wouldn't have bought the game because of how cringe it was, but I bought the game after looking at some of the gameplay, and I adore the gameplay. I didn't even know I was looking for another roguelite. I had no interest in buying another roguelite because while I liked Hades, I didn't like it enough to keep playing it. I haven't beaten Hades. I got close like 7 times, and I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of bored. So I wasn't expecting to go in and buy and play a new roguelite. I saw the gameplay, I liked it, and you know what? This is the game that I wanted to get at that moment. That was the game that I needed at that moment. I didn't know that. So how about instead of worrying about gamers' wants, you worry about making something that gamers didn't know they wanted? Of course, Phantom Pulse also includes the fact that during a Q&A portion of an interview with XDS24 conference, Assassin's Creed executive producer Mike Alexis Cote said, "We need to find where players are," which has been a question I've been having for the last 2 years. Where are the players? What are they playing? Where do we reach them? All of this will become clear in the coming years as our industry transforms. Well, the gamers haven't changed. It is the industry that changed around us. And you want to know where we are? Let's see what it is that gamers are currently doing. There's a simple website, SteamDB. I use it for everything. I use it in many of my videos. And what did you look at that? What are games playing? Counter-Strike, Dota, Marvel Rivals, going strong, PUBG, Path of Exile. Many of them are running Source, Grand Theft Auto 5, Rust, Delta Force. The banana game's still a thing? Interesting. But as you can see, this is what people are playing. Baldur's Gate 3 is still at the very top. EA Sports, that's sad. Pal World is still out towards the top. All of these games, if you want to know what people are playing, you just go here. This is free, and it is clear as day market research for any developer. But once again, it's not a matter of what gamers want. It is a matter of you trying to find something that'll appeal to someone and being able to sell that to more people. Word of mouth is the most important thing when it comes to a game. I've played a bunch of niche games and convinced people to buy the game who would never have only because of my word of mouth, because of how niche the game is and the fact that they're usually cheaper. If you want to find gamers where they are, you've got to drop the price, drop production time and cost, and just get creative and try something new. And of course, the most important thing to do to find gamers is you don't attack them, and you do everything in your goddamn power to stay out of Cabrutus Rambo's DEI detected list. But that's pretty much all I've got, so I will see you guys on the next one.